I've got that radiant glow, that sweet, glorious blue. And
Fallout is a popular gaming franchise series that many of us enjoy. But why do we enjoy it? What do we love about it? What has kept us coming back year after year, perhaps replaying the same game multiple times? Well, why don't we have a chat about it, shall we? Hello there, my name's Red, and I've played a lot of Fallout, particularly Fallout 4, 3, and New Vegas. Normally I'm delving into locations from throughout the Fallout universe every episode, but today I wanted to do something a little different. To be honest, I will say I've been running a bit low on time and haven't been able to really delve into a location properly and do a full write-up and script a whole podcast. Because yes, I do script most of this, if in case you're behind the scenes little look as it were. But this is a bit more of a free-form chat that I'll just lightly edit around my stumbling, bumbling words and long pauses when I'm thinking about things. But yes, what are my proverbial credentials, you might wonder? Well, I've got hundreds, if not, I believe over 1,000 hours bare minimum in Fallout 4. Because I play with mods, I kind of usually am in offline mode, and therefore it hasn't counted my hours for quite some time. Fallout 3 and New Vegas I played when I was quite a lot younger when they came out, and have subsequently played multiple times in the future. Now that I'm a bit older, I can sort of reflect a bit more on these games and have a little look back and think about what brought me to those games, why did I enjoy it. And first and foremost, I think the main important thing is the open world. That was really, really fun. Despite Bethesda's inability to make a working engine, the game was still fun. It was one of those things whereas despite how bad Bethesda is actually at kind of they're doing their proverbial job of making a working game, they were still enjoyable. I think that's a testament to the people behind the scenes that aren't at the top there talking about, Todd Howard and such. The lower rank people that just do the actual work, they're the people that actually work for a living, as it were. But yes, I have played it for quite some time. Fallout 3, I remember getting when I was younger and just really loving it. The open world, Liam Neeson is your father. I think I even knew back then who he was, and I was like, oh, this is Liam Neeson, the guy. But yes, that was quite fun. I remember just going out into the world and exploring it and getting to wander around. And now when you look back at it, you realise that the world was actually pretty small. It wasn't as big as you remember. In your memory, it's this vast, expansive wasteland with locations everywhere, but everything's actually really tight, and there's some actually just random areas that are pretty just open and there's kind of nothing there. And then other places it's cramped as hell and there's no logical reason why a bunch of these things would be next to each other. That's of course due to when you're in any games. I'm actually going to do a video on this at some point for my YouTube channel, my main Sanguine Red Games channel. But looking at why are super mutants less than a couple buildings away from a bunch of raiders? They should hate each other, be killing each other all the damn time, shooting at each other and all that sort of stuff. Well, it's because everything is sized down. And looking back at Fallout 3, you realise just how condensed everything was. And of course, in the Washington, D.C. area, where they literally couldn't get the game to work properly unless they blocked off a lot of areas with a lot of rubble. That's why, you go into these streets and there's just these blocks of rubble everywhere blocking your path, and you have to take these real convoluted little snaking your way through some metro tunnels and what have you. And in a way, it did lend itself to that with, the whole destroyed world, rubble and all that sort of stuff, and having to find alternate ways around. In a way, it kind of worked for it, but realistically what they wanted all those streets open. They wanted you to be able to run down, as far as I'm aware, by the way, I have no insider information or what have you, but as far as I know, they wanted you to see all those streets, go down every single one, but they just couldn't do it because the engine couldn't handle it, of course. Yes, always getting back to that engine not being able to handle it. But yes, I very much remember going to, seeing Rivet City, going there, and this little safe place and little home. And then Megaton, of course, is most people's beginning place, that place where you first really interact with a group of non-hostile NPCs. Typically, that's where the game sends you, sort of relatively railroads you down that way. You have to go there. You don't actually have to later on when you learn about the game, but it's, the place you go when you begin. But I always remember walking around that wasteland, investigating the various locations, the hilarity mixed with the dark tones, a dark humour, you might say, it often has. When you're finding, little vignettes that a lot of the game designers put in, like little teddy bears sitting on a toilet with glasses and a newspaper in their hands. That's just sort of from Fallout 4. But they love environmental storytelling because I don't think they had enough time to do a lot of huge amount of, dare I say, storytelling with voice actors. Voice actors cost money, it takes more time, all that sort of stuff. So environmental storytelling is a really key part of the Fallout franchise from 3 New Vegas and Fallout 4. I will say I haven't really played Fallout 1 and 2, which is probably going to get some people's hackles up that may be listening. And I know I really should. I should go back and, experience those, and I've tried a couple of times, but it's not my cup of tea, that type of, pointing down. Actually, no, I do enjoy that to some regard. I've played like Neverwinter Nights and things like that, but it's just a bit too old. I don't have the nostalgia for the series, Fallout 1, 2, and Brotherhood of Steel, or whatever those other ones, the non-canon ones, etc., etc. I don't have the nostalgia for it, and therefore getting past the bits that nostalgia would normally put you over, I can't do. It's a perfect example for Fallout 3 New Vegas. Fallout 3, I'd say especially. If you don't have the nostalgia for it, getting into Fallout 3 and playing it, you'd be going like, what the hell is this? Why can't I sprint? Why can't I do this? Why is everything lagging? I've got this beefy as hell PC that should be able to run this 10 times and no problem. Why can't I get into, why can't I play this properly? Why does it all feel weird? And I think without mods, the mouse feel is pretty muddy. And you can have a controller, of course, and that's what the VATS really helps with. The VATS that I never personally use because I've always played on PC where you use the old pointy and clicky. So VATS has always been an emergency backup thing when I'm in a panic moment. Less so actually using it all the damn time. It's one of those things I remember to use occasionally when I'm like, oh crap, I need a second, as it were. But yes, I could imagine if you didn't have the nostalgia for it, either playing like a mod pack, something like Begin Again is one I've played, where it's sort of trying to remaster a little bit. I definitely think if they do release a remaster of Fallout 3, I can't imagine why they would. There's no way in hell in my mind that I can't imagine why they aren't having, say, the team that did the Oblivion remaster. I can't imagine why they wouldn't have them working on a new remaster for Fallout 3. Like, the TV series has been so popular for the series. When I personally look at my metrics and see when the Fallout TV series came out, because I got this huge boost in just background views for my videos that have been out for a while now. It's very popular, apparently very well done. Yes, I haven't actually seen it, by the way. Again, raise your pitchforks at me. It's just, I'm one of those people that doesn't like supporting companies that are scum, so I don't actually buy from Amazon or give Jeff Bezos any money if I can possibly help it. And that includes not paying for Prime and things like that. But I can't imagine why they don't have one in the works. It'd be mind-boggling to find out that they didn't have one in the works. It's for them, it's kind of like printing money. It's free real estate, as it were. They can just get the company that did that, pay them a bunch of money, go, here you go, do this for this much, and then they'll do it, and then it'll come out, and even if it's janky and broken, it'll probably sell pretty well, because that's just unfortunately what happens quite a lot. I'm very curious to see what happens when the new Elder Scrolls game drops, and the new, if they're, I assume, working on a new Fallout game as well. I can't wait to see what happens if they're actually going to release a better game, and one that works a bit more out of the box, but knowing Bethesda and their arrogance and their self-important belief that they can just do anything and people will buy it, I expect it to be a little bit buggy. But yeah, sort of going back, what I was talking about is that I can imagine Fallout 3 A remaster would do well to bring a lot of people into the world and let people see why people who did play it back in the day that have the rose-tinted glasses for the series really enjoyed it, I think. And that's kind of what I need for Fallout 1 and 2. I just can't quite get past the age of it, as it were. I don't have the nostalgia, and the gameplay is not exactly my cup of tea, and therefore just getting into it is pretty rough. I'd be actually genuinely curious if they ever, in the future, I could see them doing it, doing a new 1 and 2 and retelling the story of 1 and 2 with the extra stuff that Bethesda's added to the canon and lore and what have you, and scrapping all the stuff that they didn't want to keep from 1 and 2, and actually like getting a team to just sort of remake them instead of a remaster and do 1 and 2 in, their latest engine, perhaps when Fallout 5 comes out, and that engine is hopefully better, though I highly doubt it myself, to be quite frank. I imagine it's going to be janky as hell and still just as rough and tumble and slapped together as they always feel. But yes, I could see 1 and 2 doing really well, and that's something, if they have the rights to, of course. That's always the problem, is there's always a rights issue, typically. I don't actually know if Bethesda even owns the rights to 1 and 2, technically, like the games themselves, but I think they got the franchise in general, so I could see it happening, to be honest. But yes, that's Fallout 3 is one of those games that I really loved, and it kind of got me, I think, into that sort of open world RPG genre. Not that it's a heavy RPG, it's no fantasy game with, skill trees upon skill trees and what have you. It's a pretty linear type thing. You go up a level, you get some points, and then you get a perk every 2 levels from, if memory serves, it's every 2 levels. I play with a lot of mods, and one of the things I do enjoy is typically getting a perk every level because it's just more fun. I really dislike that game mechanic of, you've leveled up, here's some points. Oh, you don't get a perk though. No, that's later on. That's what I do appreciate about Fallout 4's thing, is that every level is a perk. However, they did get rid of all the, the skill point stuff, which I don't like, which some mods have, fixed and replaced, as it were. The story was intriguing enough, but I think with, most Fallout games, you don't really come for the main story, you come for the adventure. For me, I'm very much a journey, not destination type person. That's why I've quite never got along with MMOs that much, because a lot of MMOs are not really about the journey, they're about the destination, getting to that end point, getting to that highest level to do the end rate stuff, and that satisfaction of loot, which I kind of have. I don't have a huge amount of loot lust, you might say. I'm a loot gremlin, don't get me wrong. In Fallout 4 particularly, with the settlement stuff, I am a massive loot gremlin, and actually, ironically, in Fallout 3, for instance, I'm not really that much of a loot gremlin at all, because there's no real point, unless you're playing on a very hard difficulty and need a lot of caps, but the economy in Fallout 3 is, you usually get some good amount of caps in your pocket pretty quickly. It's not that difficult in that regard. I do definitely feel like Fallout 3, lent into the silly, and so did New Vegas, and Fallout 4 did as well, but I don't feel quite as much. I mean, there was things there, don't get me wrong. That pirate ship, that old sail ship that's run by robots is all just, comical in that regard, of like these guys moving themselves, half a kilometer forward at one big burst, and they're like, great, now on to the next time when we'll eventually get where we're going, and they've obviously been doing it for hundreds of years. And they still do play into the dark humor and all that sort of stuff, I think, as well. But, if you go back at Fallout 3 especially, and it is more basic, it's older, it was the sort of first in that field of that sort of genre of game when it comes to, retrofuturism, open world, using weapons and shooting and all that sort of stuff. I think, actually, one second. Right, so Oblivion did actually come out a year before Fallout 3. That was very close, actually. That's ridiculously close, come to think of it. No surprise that they were both janky as hell when they came out, because if they were working on both and trying to get both out in a certain amount of time and what have you, wow. Yes, that makes a lot of sense, to be honest. In the end, it was the first of that type of game that I can really remember being popular at the very least. There was a lot of games like Neverwinter Nights, Baldur's Gate, all these types of things that were big, RPG styles, but a lot of them were, what is it called, isometric, I believe, that sort of like top-down view, as it were. but putting you in the first person, you know, you're right in the driver's seat, or you can go third person, of course, though I don't know anyone who has actually plays third person predominantly. I feel like most people go into first person because a big fun thing about RPGs is kind of putting yourself into the character. That's why in Fallout 3 and New Vegas especially, it works a lot better you being a silent protagonist and your text on screen, really you put yourself into it. And that's one of the big things I dislike about Fallout 4. I actually prefer mod packs that I play, mod lists and what have you, that are all like, you know, lists of mods that people have put together. I like the ones that actually convert the protagonist into a silent protagonist and actually rework the dialogue system so that you get more of the classic, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different options, as it were, rather than just the radial 4. And getting rid of the voice actors completely. I mean, it feels bad saying getting rid of them completely. They did a fine job, but I like making a character, but it's always hard to make a different type of character, or you know, put yourself in the shoes of a different, you know, different versions of a character if they all sound like the exact same generic guy. Or lass, depending on which, you know, which one you play. I think it's Nate and Nora, I believe, are the names of the main characters, respectively. And that's where the game's really shined, I personally feel, allowing you to go out into the world and just be yourself and do fun things, or be someone completely different and do perhaps some more sinister and less fun things, or fun things, I suppose, for sinister people are still fun for them, I guess. But yeah, that's what it comes down to with Fallout in general. I think why people enjoyed them. I mean, I don't think they hugely came for the tightness of the controls, because they sure as hell aren't tight controls. Fallout 4 is the best of them, and even that usually requires a mod or two just to tighten it up a little bit as well, especially on mouse and keyboard. I imagine controllers it's still fine, and that's, I must admit, one of the things that does annoy me about the games is that they're very obviously catered a lot to controllers and less about, you know, with the mouse and keyboard felt like an afterthought, and it felt like the controls were put together by someone who didn't really care or didn't really know or like keyboard and mouse, and just kind of went, this'll do, as it were, you know, rather than really trying to refine it and make it a tighter experience. But it's the world we all come for. I do love the retro futurism aesthetic. It's one of my favorite aesthetics when it comes to, you know, an aesthetic outside of our normal world, you know, when you're considering things. I mean, I love fantasy, particularly high fantasy, which is why I quite liked Oblivion. And despite loving Skyrim, I'm actually not a huge fan of the aesthetic for the most part. I would wish that they kind of did a thing where some of the areas were more Nordic and all that sort of stuff, and then other areas were more high fantasy, and then you got the weird and wacky of the Morrowind all put into one, but the whole area being the exact same thing, you're kind of shoehorning yourself into the aspect of, this is the only aesthetic, you better like it. Luckily for me, however, I do really like the retrofuturism aesthetic quite a lot, so that all really works out handy for me, each game being in the exact same aesthetic, and, you know, not having these different worlds and what have you. I mean, Boston is definitely different to the DC. DC is one of those real early grey-green games. It's got that green tint, with grey buildings and more grey here and more grey there, and a mostly browny grey landscape. It's not the most aesthetically appeasing. That's why I have a feeling, you know, mods that change that a little bit are quite popular, I could easily see. It's from that generation of, I was like, next-gen graphics. A lot of bloom and a little, you know, Gears of War grey, you might say, or Gears of War beige, where there's like very little colour here and there. But I could easily see that being zhuzhed up a fair bit in a remaster, perhaps like even a recolor. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, and it would be a really great thing, I think, if they did something where they had you, gave you like a dial, and you could say, no, in the settings here, go to classic Fallout 3 green. Or perhaps even add, like, in a New Vegas orangey tint that they sort of had, you know, that the Mexican filter, what do they call it, or Mexico filter, they call it in like filmmaking, where whenever, like, you know, if you think of Breaking Bad, whenever in there in Mexico, it's all real tinted orange. I mean, who knows, maybe they're working on a Fallout 3 New Vegas sort of combo, but I feel like they would be sort of putting them out of having 2 releases rather than 1, so I couldn't see them doing like a dual build, as it were. They could do it easily, I think, but actually doing it monetarily wise, I don't think they're going to do that. No, probably not. But as always, it's the stories in the story, you know, your memory of going back into these games and playing those, like, you know, finding those little moments here and there, those weird stories, those wacky stories, meeting strange and wonderful characters, you know, talking to your friend who's played the game and being like, oh yeah, you know, I got the house in Megaton, and the person's like, the Megaton, the place you blow up, and you're, what? The place you blew up? You can blow the place up? And all that sort of stuff. It's, very early on they had that it's a very overt karmical choice. Do you blow up a bunch of innocent people or do you not? It's pretty cut and dry. I do wish they kind of did more grey area type stuff. I think they do it a little bit, but not much. But that is sort of the tutorial kind of moral choice. It's, I think, very much meant to be a big black and white. And then hearing your Liam Neeson father either praise you or admonish you when he starts hearing about your escapades, it's actually quite hard to listen to Liam Neeson talk disapprovingly at you, being like, Megaton, my kid, what did you do? And you're like, oh, I can't, I do what I want, Dad. And you're like, oh, my Liam Neeson father's mad at me and I don't like this. So Fallout 3 was sort of essentially early days. It was, you know, baby's first steps into that sort of RPG, depending on your age. If you're around my age, you know, mid-30s, that's potentially where you found yourself. And, you know, like I said, I didn't play 1 and 2. I think I probably wasn't quite in the right age group. Mayhaps if I was like, you know, if I was in my early 40s or, you know, late 30s, mayhaps I might have been more inclined to go to it. I mean, I didn't even play Morrowind. Morrowind was a little bit before me, as in, I don't think I would have grasped it and quite understood it properly if I played it when it first came out either. It would have been probably wasted on me. But Fallout 3, I definitely gravitated towards getting a good old boy dog, and I always remember Starcross Paladin, I believe. I remember running around with her a fair bit, and the Brotherhood was a bit more, just seemed like the sort of good guys a fair bit more. They were still kind of morally grey, but in general felt like the gooder guys, as it were, rather than in Fallout 4, where they feel like, you know, mega bad guys, or at the very least kind of a bit too extremist, you might say. When it comes to story, though, nothing beats New Vegas, I think. Most people can agree with that the story is the most fun. Once again, it's really sad that you don't get to continue after the main storyline. I believe that's budgetary, and they just couldn't do it. I think they ran out of time. Fallout 3, if you remember, the story just ended at Fallout 3. You either sacrifice yourself or someone else sacrificed themselves and you passed out or whatever, and you know, evaporated in the chamber if you chose to not sacrifice, yourself, sorry. But then they fixed that with a patch, and then you woke up later and continued the story, and that was really great. I really, really love that. I mean, it sucked that they made that decision in the first place, but at least they corrected it. But that's the thing that really does, so I think one of the biggest downsides to New Vegas is that you don't get to continue the main storyline after and see the consequences to your actions. Fallout New Vegas is especially a game that is about your choices and the consequences of those actions. Do you do this? Do you do that? And that one definitely had a lot more moral grey stuff, and the NCR's kind of a morally grey type people anyway. Caesar's Legion, I think, is pretty overtly evil. That is the obvious evil choice, but whether you side with the NCR or run it yourself, it's like, who's doing worse? Who's doing the more evil here, as it were? And I think it's a shame there's not really a follow the apocalypse type storyline that, from memory, unless I'm misremembering, I could be misremembering, my apologies. It's been a while since I've really just played properly the main storyline of New Vegas. I've always done mod packs where I'm going off and doing other things, seeing what's new in a mod pack or a mod list, or, you know, exploring the new things, or just exploring what was, you know, already there apart from the main storyline. The DLCs were pretty great as well from memory. I didn't get on with the Honest Hearts DLC one that much, but it was the first one, and it felt like it was definitely something different, but still keeping to that sort of, you know, dry, arid desert type thing, is just a bit more canyony from memory. Old World Blues was really fun as well, like just a bit more comical, though it was a real grind, if every memory serves me right. There was one of those things where you get there and it's like some of these guys are just like bullet sponge grinds. does lose some points in my head for that, but it's always that main storyline, that factions vying for control, and then you waltz in and swing your, proverbial self around, and, you really integrate into that story. You're kind of a little bit like a chosen one, which I think is the first one. There's sort of a chosen one, or the second Fallout game. There's a bit more of a, you're labeled as the chosen one or something like that. I am really intrigued by the Fallout 1 story, because I think, from memory, if memory serves, and I have looked into this a couple times and, researched it for other purposes, but looking at it is, you're sent out of the vault by the Overseer because your water purification system is going down, and you need to go out there and get some parts, and through your escapades you eventually come back, but then the Overseer decides that because you've been in the outside world and been in its influence, that you'll be a bad influence on all the residents inside the vault, because the Overseer wants everyone to stay inside and be quiet and all that sort of stuff. And so you, the hero, decide, well, screw it, I'm going to, pull a bender and go do some blackjacks and hookers elsewhere and actually make your own little civilization. And eventually I believe that Overseer gets tried and executed by the people who actually agreed with your character, that outside world is not as scary, or it is scary, but you shouldn't be shutting themselves off from it. And eventually that vault got opened up and they got rid of the Overseer title, I think, entirely from memory. So that would always intrigue me. So I would love to play those games, but I think I would love to play that in a, remastered, perhaps even a remake version more so, rather than what it currently is. But yes, New Vegas is especially, I think, holds a dear place in a lot of people's hearts, despite being, if the worst, I think, release of any of the Bethesda games, and that's saying a fair bit. I still remember it coming out and it was so broken, still so broken. I think there's still a quest that you can't complete if you haven't got some patches, like community-made patches. It's the guy, I think this is the ranger in Novak, I believe. Unless this has been patched, and I'm not aware of it, but I'm pretty sure there's a side mission with him that you can't complete unless you use console commands or have a, community-made patch that fixes it. Much like the Oblivion remaster, which has also had this treatment, Bethesda sometimes seems to just put the games out and then fix some stuff, but leave it still pretty broken. Like, they can't be bothered spending the money on actually making the game into a fully workable state as intended, which kind of really sucks. It's why I personally think that Bethesda is the worst part about the Fallout and Elder Scrolls series. And I'll fully confess, when it comes to aesthetics, the Western retrofuturism that New Vegas has is probably my favourite variant of that thing. Adding a Western to it really served it really well. That sort of, Wild West. And everyone has this almost ideological view of it because they don't really know what a Western was in the first place. And going to New Vegas and the Vegas Strip and, the kings, just the how funny that is that the kings are worshipping this idol, this guy that everyone was like, well, clearly this guy was a very important leader and a figure, because there's impersonation schools about him. People loved him so much, they wanted to be like him, be like the king. It's all really fantastic, and again, New Vegas is one of those ones that you love it and you kind of hate it, because once again, with the Washington DC and Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas had the Strip, which just did not run well at the beginning, and it still doesn't really run well. Even if you get a mod pack that is just bug fixes and just trying to make it work as best as it can, those loading screens that you constantly have to go through just build up and crash the game. It just does it. It's just what New Vegas does. New Vegas crashes, most importantly. And again, that's a real stopgap to getting people that haven't played the games and mayhaps don't have that nostalgia for that era of games at all, because they might be, not young enough, too old. No, too young. There we go, too young to actually remember those games, and also have that knowledge of understanding and going, okay, this is what games were like at this time. I understand it. Let's go and see what this one was like in that era, the one that I missed. But the writing very much is the thing that grabs most people to New Vegas, and it's also the thing I think is the biggest detriment in Fallout 4. Now, I'm a builder in my heart. In my heart of hearts, in my bones, I feel it. I am a builder. I love building in games. I love playing 7 Days to Die. I mean, I haven't played it recently, and when I sort of did, I didn't actually quite gel with it as much anymore, but back in the day, I absolutely loved the crap out of a building all the damn time. I enjoyed Minecraft. I'm one of those people who played Minecraft when it was free and pre-alpha, as it were. I actually played it back then, yes. It's quite funny, actually. I've got some nephews that talk about Minecraft and show me and go, oh, look at this is Minecraft. And it's like, yes, I know what Minecraft is. I was there before you were born, boy, type thing. I feel like sometimes, though they've had a bunch of nonsense that I'm not hugely familiar with, but you know what I mean. Anyway, getting back on track, I love Fallout 4 because of the building. I love creating a safe place. So you go out and you adventure out, and there you are, out in the wilds, doing this sort of stuff. And of course, the graphical engine, the mouse and feel and what have you is better, and what have you. And then with just a dash of mods that can make it really good. But then you come back to your home, your safe little humble abode. You de-loot, put up some weapons mayhaps that you found on a wall or whatever, and sit down and just relax and decompress and de-ratify yourself, as it were, and heal up and what have you, ready for your next adventure. But coming back and creating this like settlement, this network of settlements, I do really like the idea, the concept of the whole network thing. But Preston Garvey is one of those things. It's like you did something so great, and then you put Preston Garvey in there, this guy who constantly pesters you all the damn time about settlements, needs your help. Yeah, I wish I could hire some people and have them deal with that stuff, which is what some mods kind of do as well. They sort of add like in roaming Minutemen and what have you, and you feel then less of a need to go and defend those settlements. I highly recommend mods that do that sort of stuff. Expanding the Minutemen type mod, but the main story is the thing that really falls apart. Again, as I say again, I didn't actually give a spoiler warning for anything else, but spoiler warning, I guess, for Fallout 4. But the son you're looking for turns out to be the leader of the Institute, and he's like 80 years old or something like that, 60, 70, 80, something like that. I genuinely couldn't have cared less about finding my son in that game. That was such a bad hook, especially for people like me who aren't that precious about kids, who aren't that sort of, I think the fact that Kellogg, shot your partner in the head, that is enough motive to find and hunt the bastard down, either for revenge or just trying to find out why the hell he just did it. I mean, the whole reason they came into the vault was to steal the baby or what have you, but they could have... The baby's almost like that, what do you call it, the plot device, the MacGuffin, the thing in filmmaking they talk about. It's like, the MacGuffin is actually not that important, it's just a thing. It's the journey, the destination, all that sort of stuff, that's the more important thing. I'm trying to give a good example, but the only thing that came to my mind was the ring in Lord of the Rings, but it's actually a pretty important piece, that ring, but I guess it kind of is a MacGuffin in that sort of way. I just quickly paused to look up some MacGuffins, and people often mentioned the Indiana Jones films, all the sacred relics and all that sort of stuff are a MacGuffin. I think it's MacGuffin, it's MacGuffin, but I say MacGuffin, I guess, but a MacGuffin mayhaps is the word. And that's what your baby is kind of meant to be for most of the part, but like, I wish they just gave, like, your partner happened to take a secret device or just something else rather than a baby, because particularly people who aren't very paternal or maternal, someone like me, I don't give a crap. I'm not like, oh, I must rescue baby, my kid, all that sort of stuff. I just don't care. And I think even people who do have kids and all that sort of stuff, and would, if it was realistically them, hunt that person down to the ends of the earth, didn't give a crap in this thing, because there was not enough time to, even with your partner, there wasn't really enough time to really develop a relationship with them. I mean, I think it would have been great if you both actually survived and your partner doesn't follow you as a companion at all. Like, no, I need to stay here and I don't want to go out there. They have some reason why they can't go. Perhaps they hurt their leg really badly and they can't be moved, and you take them to Sanctuary Hills, a good reason to get you to Sanctuary Hills, to meet Codsworth and all that sort of stuff, and they look after them. And then you have this person you come back to for a little bit, and then in the progression of the story, something does happen to them. They get taken, they disappear or whatever, they, just get shot or something like that when you're gone or something, And that would have been so much better. It's one of those things where my brain is racing from all the different options that would have been better than that stupid damn baby that you end up not being able to rescue anyway. And then when you do find him, he's basically kind of evil and you can't even convince him to change. He's set in his ways and you either just take over or join the dark side with him. You know, it's just not the best. And the Railroad feel like absolute idiots. To me, I personally feel like the Railroad feels like a group of kids that think they're being all super duper secret and they're being all great and underground, but the Institute cares so little about them. They just occasionally send out some robots to, get the nest, sorted, as it were, but then they care so little about them, they barely pay them enough attention and brain power to even try and find them properly, because they genuinely don't give a crap. And the idea of, synths and androids and what it means to be a human is all really great sci-fi story stuff, and they completely fumbled it. So when it comes to storylines, I think I would rank it, New Vegas is the best, and Fallout 3 under that, pretty close, and then pretty far down is Fallout 4. But when it comes to Fallout 4 in the general, it's still kind of my favourite, because for me it's about the journey, and I find I wish it was bigger, I must admit. That's the one gripe I have about the wasteland in Fallout 4. I wish there was a bit more, a bit more to it. But I mean, I guess that's a kind of a compliment in a way, where you're like, I wish this thing I really enjoyed, that there was more of it. And we got that with Far Harbor, and although we got that with Nuka World 2, which is also kind of, to be quite frank, a pretty crap DLC. I think Far Harbor, a lot more people appreciate. Far Harbor has that very Cthulhu, type vibe to it, and I remember it being real sinister and creepy and very, very big atmosphere to it, this oppressive fog and all that sort of stuff, and that was really great. And I think that also delved into, the synths and what it meant to be human, is something that perfectly replicates a human personality down to emotions. Is that not itself life? And I personally think it is. I think that we are all machines. We are just all different versions of machines. We're more organic, where they're more, mechanical. And it's a matter of perspective, really, in the end. And that's a philosophical debate. I haven't re-recorded that line several times. For another time, I will say. But it's really great in a lot of aspects and really not great in a lot of others. I really love the weapon modding, like the customization. Again, that kind of, I think, goes into that building aspect. And I think that's what people really enjoyed about New Vegas, especially because New Vegas added some mods in. It wasn't many. You just kind of bought some pieces and slapped them onto weapons, but it was still weapon mod customization. There was nothing for the armor, if memory serves. I might be misremembering, but off the top of my head, I don't think there was anything for armor, but for weapons, it was great, and then Fallout 4 really expanded upon that. I genuinely think the next Elder Scrolls game, it would be a damn shame if they don't have at least as good a building system as they did in Fallout 4. I hope it's more robust, and I think I can talk about that sort of stuff, later on. I mean, I might do another one of these videos where I talk about, what I would like to see in the new Elder Scrolls game, what I would like to see in the next Fallout game, all that sort of stuff. If you're interested in that sort of stuff, do let me know in the comments and what have you, or put a message in and let me know that, oh yes, I'd love to hear you talk about this sort of stuff. I mean, I know I'm just some guy on the internet, but I guess we're all just some person on the internet, aren't we? And I'm just one that has a good microphone and knows how to record stuff, I guess. So yeah, it's really one of those weird scales where I think Fallout New Vegas was up there in a lot of aspects, but down the bottom, and the same goes for Fallout 4. New Vegas is up there for the story. It was kind of up there a little bit for the, the weapons stuff, which was above, say, Fallout 3, which Fallout 3 had probably the worst wasteland out of the three and the worst, customization options, in that there's, basically none. Whilst New Vegas is down the bottom there when it comes to, running smooth and what have you, and Fallout 3 isn't that far behind. It's not that much better. The reason that Fallout New Vegas struggled so much is because they gave them crap when it came to Fallout 3. They handed them an engine over and just said, here, make this work, and the people were like, man, getting this to run like 30 frames a second is really hard, and the original people were like, 30 frames a second? No one does 30 frames a second. What are you talking about, you idiot? And that's, I think, when Obsidian and stuff like that, I've heard from interviews and stuff where they're like, right, so they don't even think 30 frames a second is a good thing. Okay. Wow, this is what we're dealing with type thing. And that's where I think a lot of that arrogance and stuff that I talk about often comes in as well. And Fallout 4 is pretty much down there on the bottom for the old storyline. But the gameplay and the other stuff that I think you interface with a lot more is better, and in my personal less than humble opinion, is better in that regard. And that's why I generally love Fallout 4 the most. I think it's the most modern, of course, which really does help. The mods out there are really great. There's a huge amount of mods for all of them, but Fallout 4 especially has a lot. Unfortunately, it's delving a lot more into Gooner stuff and Clanker AI slop stuff, which is unfortunate, but that's kind of happening in every field in that regard. I feel like Starfield is especially guilty of that. I've seen like so much. That's why I don't really play Starfield mod packs and stuff, because every single time I've just seen nothing but like, AI stuff and all that kind of crap and nonsense. People can't be even bothered making a mod themselves. They outsource it to an AI. It's like, why the hell should I even bother playing this if you can't even be bothered making it? Which is, my general personal opinion on that sort of stuff. But I think Starfield especially is one of those. They're in a whole other league of themselves. I just did not get along with that game. I love space, I love sci-fi, I'm a huge fan of Mass Effect and all that sort of stuff, and they just absolutely dropped the ball. They tried to basically make No Man's Sky, but with Bethesda's engine, and it just absolutely didn't work. It's a load screen simulator, and you can't get away from that no matter how much you mod it, how much they try and customize it, how much they try and do. It is a load screen simulator. That's the biggest downside to it. If you're curious about my personal opinion on what I thought they should have done in Starfield, I think they should have made it so you're just in one system. One sun, or perhaps a dual sun, whatever, it doesn't matter. A couple moons, and then, Earth sort of type planet, and a couple other planets of varying degrees of mayhaps some real rambunctious and real fun biomes and all that sort of stuff. And maybe even still have that random thing where you pop into random spots and you can build bases and all that sort of stuff, but closing off a system so that you can only fly around in that sector, and therefore make space travel, the ability to make space travel a bit more open probably perhaps would have been better. Being able to take off from a planet and fly elsewhere probably would have been potentially possible if they did that then. And then the main thrust of the story might have been, well, what it was in Starfield perhaps, but also perhaps it's just you trying to get yourself out of this system that you've found yourself in, and a lot of people are trapped. It would have been great to have this system you go into, and it's like everyone's like, well, welcome to the system now. This is our humble abode, and you can't get out because of blank. Hyperspace is blocked off, whatever, all that sort of stuff. I generally think that's what they kind of should have done, rather than trying to make what is essentially, looking back on it now, like the AI generative version of trying to make, quantity over substance, as it were. That's what Starfield really felt like to me. And forgive me, don't worry, if you love Starfield, then great. I wish I loved Starfield. I genuinely do wish I loved it. I wish I was like, if you're listening and you do love it and you don't agree with anything I'm saying, or you still loved it regardless of what am saying and believe what I'm saying is true, but still love it. I wish I felt like you. Trust me, I love space stuff. Sci-fi is really fun. I really enjoy it. I just genuinely do wish I did love it, but I just don't. And that's in my own personal ranking list. Starfield's just way down the bottom there somewhere. But that's a different game in the end. That's not the Fallout game. That's not what I'm kind of trying to talk about today. Well, what I'm more rambling randomly about, I will say, in replacement of doing a proper location for an episode. I mean, if you do enjoy my just talking about my feelings about certain things, or chatting away, and you like this feeling more, or just as much as my location stuff, do let me know in the comments or in a message or what have you. Because to be quite frank, I'll be real with you, like, I'm not getting a huge amount of views on this sort of stuff, and it does feel sometimes a bit like a chore, a little bit it has occasionally, but doing something like this where I'm just freeform chatting and doing some just light editing and what have you, it's a lot easier to produce one of these. That's for certain. It takes me nearly, multiple hours to go into a location, explore it, ride up and all that sort of stuff, so do definitely let me know if you'd be happy to hear this sort of stuff, even if it's just for a little while, who knows. I'll hopefully find the time or have the ability to go back to doing more location stuff, but just for this time, I just needed to do something, because I think this is already delayed at the moment, so yes. Sorry about all that if you're hoping for a new video talking about a new location. Anyway, I do definitely think when Fallout came around, there wasn't much else like it, and it just really grabbed me. It really, really did. And then even at that early on, modding grabbed me too in that regard, because I liked it, and then I was like, oh, there's some mods. Oh, cool. You can pop some stuff in. Oh, you can make some more people. People have made this real fun stuff, and some lascivious stuff and other things as well, but also, you know, there's a lot of new content, new weapons, especially new armor. All that stuff's really great. Adding in new quests and what have you too, fixing things. One of the biggest mods out there is always like the community patch, which is just this unofficial patch. Is like, we fixed all the stuff Bethesda couldn't be bloody bothered fixing themselves, so we've done it for them, which I also kind of felt like led to that. I definitely think, I mean, I have no way to confirm this or anything like that, but I definitely feel like that there's that arrogant thought of, oh, well, we'll put it out and then the community will fix it. And so if people come across broken stuff and then they want to fix it, well, they can just go get the mods and stuff. We don't have to bother doing it. They've saved us a bunch of money by doing it, haha, the fools type thing, which is definitely the wrong attitude to have when you're trying to make a good game. Sorry, I realised that this video's kind of gone to why I love Fallout, and it's sort of half converting into why I hate Bethesda in a certain way. Sorry about that. That's not my intention mostly. It's really hard to compete with the feeling of going back, and again, those rose-tinted glasses are very much on when it comes to Fallout 3 New Vegas. Fallout 4, I definitely think that. I mean, I kind of wish they didn't try to go as realistic as possible, that they had it a little bit more stylized, because I think Fallout 4 would have held up a lot better if they'd done that. And I mean, Fallout 3 New Vegas would have as well. I know they tried to go with like realistic facial expressions and all that sort of stuff, and I mean, they totally nailed it in Oblivion. I don't know why they even bothered going further than that. Those weird blobs of weird people and meshes and weird stuff. I don't know why they even thought they perfected it right there. Why didn't they just stop? I mean, Skyrim, I think, especially has that real... that's a bit more stylized. Like, you go back and look at it now, yes, you can get some mods that up-res the textures, but they still look... They have this certain vibe and look to them. If you look at the remaster, they didn't try and make the people look as realistic as possible. They just upped the quality of that stylized look that people have. None of them look like... Most of them don't really look like real people, but they look like people in a fantasy world in a sort of stylized game. Whereas Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas and stuff, that's where they kind of fell down, trying to make just sort of more generic real people, but I guess it sort of fit the aesthetic a bit more. They were trying to be as groundbreaking as possible, pushing the boundaries when they probably should have been making a stable boundary that they can walk on, rather than trying to push over it and go way too far and overreach too much. So for all my gripes, I still do love the games. They hold a pretty good place in my heart, I will say. And Fallout 4, I still play to this day, making videos on my Sanguine Red Games channel all the time. I'm delving into doing different sort of things, cutting down on the Let's Play stuff and doing more little fun off one things, like getting the rarest achievement in Fallout 4 that only like 1.5% people have had. That's one of my newest videos at the time of this recording. But yes, the world, the aesthetic, the vibes of it all is something I really enjoy. The dark humor especially. And then in Fallout 4, of course, the building. I love the building. I can't emphasize how much, like, if a mod pack doesn't add a bunch of stuff to the building, you know, adding more settlement parts and all that sort of stuff in, I don't feel like I've got anything, gained it much new. I'm like, oh, there's some new weapons, that's cool, some new armor, that's cool, some new things. Oh, but they got all this snappable clutter mod that I really love, that adds a bunch of this cluttery stuff that really adds to the lived-in feel, because I really love making a place feel lived in, feel real. And that's what I really hope they do in the new Elder Scrolls game, allowing you to make a place. Like, it felt like Skyrim had that Hearthstone or whatever it was, the Hearthfire or whatever it's called. That stuff was the baby steps towards what they finally did in Fallout 4, so that I hope it bounces back into the new Elder Scrolls 6 and, you know, accentuates that by having this whole... I mean, I think it would be really fun. If I had a guess and a wager what they're doing, I have a feeling that they might do something where it's like you build a settlement and it's a big place, but mayhaps you only have one, is what I'm mayhaps thinking. Or maybe you do one big settlement and you basically build almost a city, which I think would be fantastic if they can pull it off. And then mayhaps you have some little outposts here and there, you know, where you put a hut on or a shack on or a watchtower or what have you. It depends on what they go with the story, of course, and all that sort of stuff. That's very much going to link into it and what have you. But that's my hope for what they do. And yes, once again, it feels like this podcast is talking to in what I think they are going to do for the new Elder Scrolls game. I mean, I'm honestly genuinely considering turning my Green Vault podcast, not so much just talking out into about Fallout specifically, but talking about Bethesda games in general, you know, the Elder Scrolls and the Fallout series together, doing videos like this, doing this exact type podcast when I'm, in desperate need of another one quickly, doing the same thing, but doing it for Elder Scrolls instead. But I know that not everyone loves one version or the other. Some people love Elder Scrolls and don't really like Fallout, and vice versa, especially. And I can very much see that. If you're a big fantasy fan, but you're not you're not a sci-fi shooter fan, you wouldn't like one, or vice versa. So I can very much see why some people don't like one and love the other. I'm one of those people that fortuitously likes both of them. I'm one of those people that, never had that debate in like, Star Trek or Star Wars. I liked them both. I liked Andromeda. I liked Babylon 5. I liked a lot of those sci-fi shows. So there's, Battlestar Galactica I could take or leave. But and again, that sounds like probably sacrilegious to a lot of sci-fi lovers. The remake never quite... I did watch it, but it never quite grabbed me, I will say. I rewatch doesn't... I've never had that need to want to rewatch it, because I just... I didn't like some of it. So anyway, that's another aside completely once again. We're talking about Fallout, damn it, that's what I'm supposed to be talking about. But yes, it's a lovely franchise in certain aspects, and in other aspects it needs a lot of work. They need to do some of their homework a bit better, I think. Stop trying to cheat off other people's work in school, and, just knuckle down and do it themselves, or what have you. I don't know where this metaphor, it kind of got away from me a little bit there, but all in all, I think the reason that we love Fallout is the vibes of the location, the retro futurism, which at the time I feel like it was in number 1 and 2 from memory. I'm not sure if it's the exact vibe. I must admit, I haven't really gone and thoroughly looked at like Fallout 1 and 2 aesthetics to see exactly if it really had that how much retro futurism was actually in it. In that regard, like, the cars, those like bubbly type cars, but they run on like jets and nuclear power and all that sort of stuff. And I imagine the robots and stuff would have been in Fallout 1 and 2, the Mr. Handys and stuff like that, and the Protectrons and all that sort of stuff. I assume they were there. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't actually know, kind of think of it. It's one of the things I feel like I need to go and research, but I think we all love the aesthetic, and we love the experience and the nostalgia of thinking about it and going back into those times. And when it came out on the time, I can imagine a lot of people just snuggling up in the blanket or whatever, and just, there with a controller in their hand and playing Fallout 3, until late hours in the morning when they should have been going to bed to get up to school the next day, and all that sort of stuff, being a bit cheeky and, just delving into that world and experiencing that world. And Fallout New Vegas came along, and that was, once you could actually play the damn game, it was this whole new aesthetic of this real great contrast between Fallout 3 and New Vegas was the grey brick and concrete of Fallout 3 to this deserty western vibe that mayhaps a lot of people who were playing that game didn't really know. It's a very American western type vibe that mayhaps a lot of people just had, they knew about spaghetti westerns, or mayhaps, had they even seen Clint Eastwood in a movie? I don't know. But that particular aesthetic was, just this... It's just really fantastic. And then the story was great as well, and they made some advancements on the things, of course. The New Vegas stripped all the lights and all this sort of stuff, even if there was a crap ton of loading screens. It was a pain, and it was a nightmare to get around anywhere, and it crashed all the damn time. And then Fallout 4 came out with its, new area and the settlement building and all that sort of stuff, and then the mods that came in to really accentuate all that sort of stuff. It's just this great thing that, despite all its problems, has done really well. And I think that's one of the big things about Fallout in the series from, the ones I know, 3, New Vegas and 4, is that despite all the negative, they still did really well, and people still enjoyed them, for what they were, even if they were a bit janky and what have you. We love them, and we love the people in them, and, we all have our favourites. I love Moira Brown in Fallout 3 and Megaton. In New Vegas, I always make fun of him, but I do quite enjoy Boone. I make fun of his emo aesthetic and what have you, but having Eddie with you with that fantastic little robot, and you've always got this dog with you, and good old boy dog meat and 4. I mean, people love... I remember when they announced in Fallout 4, they were basically like, dog meat, the dog won't die, don't worry. And people are like, I feel good, because he looks like such a bloody good boy, and we really don't want to see him die. I mean, I definitely don't like taking dog meat around because he whimpers when he gets injured, and I hate that. So, I mean, I'm a caveat of this, I'm not a dog person. I think all doggos are good doggos, and they all deserve a good doggo life, but I'm not personally someone that has a dog in my house. I never want a dog, basically. I'm a cats person, but even then, like, listening to him whimper and, and having to hit him with a stim pack just to get him up and stuff like that, I'm always like, I'll build a lovely little house for you, good boy, and you just stay here and live your good boy life, and I'll take Codsworth, a robot thing that's a bit more, rambunctious and can survive a bit more and what have you. And they all have their own ups and downs in the end. They all had their own vibes and their own feel to them, and just this, this general melange of things that really came together to make something great when, on paper, if you wrote down what's good about this game, what's bad about this game, you look at it and go, why the hell does anyone like this again? The engine's not that great, it crashes a lot, especially if you have an NVIDIA graphics card and you try and turn on this one setting for like their weapon debris physics stuff, and it's like, they can't go over 60 frame rates, or they shouldn't, because of, frame physics stuff that they just didn't forward think of, and, you go to the old ones, it's like, wow, these run really crappy and they crash all the time, and on paper, these shouldn't do very well at all. And I think it's one of those funny things. It's like, the aesthetic's so great, the vibes are so great, the journey, not the destination, is so great, that I think that's what we enjoy about it. Well, I mean, I'm saying we. This is what I think, and I think I mayhaps be talking for some other people. Mayhaps you might disagree. Of course, do let me know if you disagree, or what you personally think. What are your memories? What did you play back in the day? Or if you're someone, I'd love to hear from someone that has played the games much later on. Like, did you play Fallout 3 New Vegas? Like, I got both of them last year because they were on a massive sale, and I got Fallout 4 at some point as well, and really enjoyed that, and decided to go back. What people think and all that sort of stuff. I'd really love to hear from someone like that as well, particularly. But don't let that put you off if you just want to say, I liked them, or no, actually I'm not a big fan of this one, or that stuff. I do really love to hear from people and their experiences. But yes, I think I have rambled on far too long. My voice is getting a bit tired, to be quite frank, from all this chatting away and what have you, this more relaxed chatting, as it were. But it's been a little bit of a time here, nearly an hour, which is fantastic. I think that's a nice little podcast, as it were. So as always, don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and leave a comment and what have you. It all really does help out. And do let me know if you enjoyed this podcast, or if you're a bit like, oh, it's just him talking and, reminiscing about stuff, and I much like, sorry, my voice is not meant to be condescending about you. It's just, meant to be like, oh, shucks, I do like the location stuff. I think that's more interesting or more fun. I mean, I must admit, it's one of those things in retrospect, I'm looking at it and thinking, I have a feeling that there's probably too much of this type of stuff already out there, and I'm kind of just adding to a noise, and it's not really the way forward. So I might be revamping and rethinking about what I do in this podcast and what have you. But that's for future me to worry about, and for future me to think about. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed all this. And as always, like I said, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And thank you very much for spending your time with me, listening to me ramble on about various things. And thank you very much to BirdZ for the background royalty-free music that I'm using. Credits in the description. But that is it for now. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.